What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the Acura Audio Garage. Today we're going to be talking about the Acura ELS audio system, what the ELS audio system is, how it got started, how you may have trouble upgrading it or you may not be able to upgrade it. We're going to cover all that information, and we're also going to cover our ELS amplifier interface, which lets you replace the factory radio in your ELS equipped Acura and retain the factory amplifier, but more on that later. Now, if this is your first video you're watching on the channel and you're new to the channel, I like to do these scripts. I'm not a professional YouTuber by any means, but there's a lot of information when it comes to these cars, and I like to make sure that I give you all the information. So if it sounds like I'm reading, sometimes I am, sometimes I'm talking to you directly. So first things first is, if you're watching this video, you're probably asking yourself, what is the ELS system? Why does my car have the ELS system? How do I upgrade the ELS system? So, ELS audio system was created by Elliot Schneider. Elliot is a highly regarded music producer and audio engineer. Back in 2004, Elliot had a vision to bring a surround sound experience or a studio listening experience into a vehicle. So Elliot, Acura, and Panasonic teamed up to make Elliot's vision a reality. They introduced surround sound or a studio level experience in your Acura. They did that with the use of these Panasonic amps. So I'm sure you've seen it, all these silver amps in different Acuras. These amps have, I'm not an audio engineer, but they have special processing to enable this surround sound. And at the same time as they developed this technology, DVD audio was starting to gain some traction. So if you've never heard of DVD audio, it's a big thing back in 2003 to 7, I want to say. DVD audio was a new encoding for CDs that allowed you to basically get a high fidelity audio out of a regular CD. Now, this wasn't common, only certain cars had it, and this Acura TL was the first one. So the ELS system, when you play DVD audio, it really came to life. You really got that surround sound experience, and it was a really game-changing thing for the industry, especially for Acura. So DVD audio kind of died out, and it really didn't pan out to be what people expected, but the ELS system continued to evolve. So that was the first iteration of the ELS system. It's now up to 18 speakers, I believe, or 16 speakers in the latest and newest Acura TLX and the Integra. So Elliot continued to perfect the ELS system, and if I'm being honest with you, I think it lives up to the hype. The latest Integra with the ELS system sounds really good. I know there are people out there, we've had customers too, who are like, oh, it's not loud enough. It doesn't have enough bass. I want to get more bass. I want it to be louder. But I think for what you expect out of a factory system, it sounds good, and everything you could want is there. I'm sure you want a little more loudness, a little bit more bass. That's very common. But I think from the factory, it's a good system. I think they do a really good job. Now, that's your current ELS system. Let's get back to the point of the video. Your older ELS system is probably due for some upgrade. Let me just give you a quick breakdown of what the ELS system is comprised of. You're going to have your actual head unit. You're going to have your amplifier. So your ELS system is going to have your head unit. You're going to have your amplifier. You're going to have your speakers. There's going to be other components. These are the really big two that most people want to replace. So we're going to start with the head unit. We'll talk about the amplifier later on. So if you have an ELS equipped Acura, and now we're talking 2007 for the MDX, but really all of them are going to be 2009 to 2013. They are all going to have, if you have navigation, the ELS system. If you have the ELS system, your factory radio and your factory amplifier talk to each other on a CAN bus or RS-45 interface communication. I'm not sure what it's called. I'm not an engineer. But ultimately, they send CAN bus messages back and forth, although I do believe it's just a master-slave. They're not both communicating. I don't think it's bidirectional, but I think the interface is bidirectional. But whatever, back to the point. This is sending commands to the amplifier. And what I mean by that is, normally when you turn the volume up and down on something, you're switching a potentiometer up and down. And that's increasing resistance and decreasing resistance. And that's how your volume gets adjusted. You're just increasing and decreasing resistance. In our case, when you turn this knob, the little computer inside of here goes, okay, I have to generate a command, an encoded message that I then send over a CAN bus wires to the amplifier. The amplifier then receives the message, decodes it, and go, oh, okay, he wants me to turn the volume up. He wants me to adjust the bass. He wants me to adjust the treble. I need to make a beep. So you can even send, there's a command, hopefully I can get some B-roll footage, where you could send a command to the amplifier and it just beeps at a certain level. And it's a certain command that's sent. Now, you may be wondering, why did they get this complex? So as technology was evolving, you started integrating other things into the car. They sometimes needed to talk to the audio system or play audio. So one example would be on your MDX with the backup sensors, the beeping's coming through your speakers. The beeping is a message that's sent from the car to the radio, from the radio to the amplifier, and the amplifier then beeps. So things like that needed to be accounted for. Then you have active noise canceling. So when your car is on the road, all your windows are shut, you have road noise. You want to combat that road noise. They make some fake noise through the speakers. That noise is played by your amplifier. There are commands in the amplifier to enable that. Also, if you like to increase your volume with speed, so this has a setting to do that, so that when you go faster, the volume increases a certain bit. That's also built into your amplifier and radio communication. So there's a lot there, and that's why they've gotten so complicated. Now, Acura isn't the only people who do this. Every other major manufacturer of vehicles in their higher end vehicles has CAN bus communication. So if you have another vehicle, if you have a Ford truck or a GM truck or a Chrysler product, they all use CAN bus. American vehicles have been using CAN buses for years. They have different names for them, but ultimately it's a network device, and the amplifier is part of the network, and it's turning on and off with commands. In your case, your amplifier is turning on and off with a switch, but volume adjustment, fader, all that other stuff, think of it as a little DSP inside that's getting manipulated by your radio. And when you go to replace your radio, all that communication is lost. When you lose that communication, no longer adjust the volume. And I'm sure it's happened to some of you watching this video. You replace the radio in your TSX and your MDX and your TL, etc. And now you turn the volume all the way up, but it's not getting as loud. Maybe what used to be volume 40 on your factory radio, which was max volume, sounded great. You can get to maybe a third of that, maybe a fourth of that when you max out the aftermarket radio. So we found that problem. We're like, we need to come up with a solution. Your major manufacturers, Metro Pack, don't have a solution. There are interfaces out there that work for other cars, but none that work for the Acura. So with some reverse engineering, we were able to break down the communication and ultimately create our own interface. We try to keep this as simple as possible. So all it takes is power, ground, and then connection to the vehicle and a volume knob. Now you may be thinking, why the hell does it have a volume knob, or what is this thing? And the way this works is very simple. Your car has a connector. So look, this is for a 2010 to 12 TL. It's a 36 pin connector, but these are the three wires that are the CAN bus communication. You have positive, negative, and then a shield. All of your vehicles in that year series, so this is an 11 to 14 TSX, have the same communication wires. So here we have the same wires. When you order this, it comes with this harness, so you're just plugging it in. It's going to be plug and play. You don't have to worry about wiring. Then we have power and ground, like we mentioned. This knob is now your volume control. Remember, this is a digital volume control. This is a regular analog resistive volume control that when the resistance of this changes, adjusts the messages being sent from here to your factory amplifier. So this is designed to work the exact same way the factory radio works. You don't have to do any wire splicing, anything like that. It's just an interface that when you turn the volume, sends the correct message to the amplifier so you can get your full volume control back. The other thing is this is a dual pot, I forget what it's called, but ultimately volume knobs here, this is your bass knob. So you can adjust the subwoofer level through here. Know that at max volume, the subwoofer level is no longer adjustable in the amp. It's just a safety mechanism they have built in. But let's say you're at halfway or 3/4 volume, then you can adjust the subwoofer level right through here. Most people don't do that. They just adjust the volume here and choose the subwoofer level on the aftermarket radio. But ultimately, this pairs with your aftermarket radio. You're trying to install this instead of this. What's going to happen is you're going to end up with low audio. We already talked about it. So this has a volume control, but this volume control, for our case and purpose, does not adjust the volume of your amplifier. Your amplifier is still at a certain volume, even though your radio may be, this radio I think goes up to 55, so your radio may be at 55 and the output may be at 4 volts, but that means nothing to this. That means it's just getting a 4 volt output, and yeah, it's amplifying a little bit, but just a little bit. So to adjust the volume of this, you're gonna need this interface. Talk to you about it. I just want to summarize with visuals because it's easier to learn this way than me just talking. So this bridges the gap between your new aftermarket radio and your factory amplifier. I'm gonna talk to you about something that might be confusing, and I'm gonna try my best to explain it. So you install an aftermarket radio, you install our interface. You're like, cool, I get double the volume now because you maxed this out and you maxed this out. That's not what you want to do. This is not a recommended use case. What you want to do is set your radio, if the max volume is 50, to 25, and 25 is the max that you will ever put your radio at. And you will control the rest of the volume of the vehicle with this. So we have 2 volume controls. One for your radio, one for your amplifier. This is the volume control for your amplifier. This, you're gonna bring up to 25 or half volume and leave it at that. You're then gonna use this knob to control full volume. And you're like, what the hell, why does it work like that? Why would I have to do that? From the factory, this radio right here sends a 1 volt fixed output. 1 volt fixed output at all times. When you adjust the volume, that output does not change. The messages that are sent to the amplifier change, but that output does not change. Your factory amplifier then takes that 1 volt of output and amplifies it according to the command set. So as you turn the volume, it's amplifying it at different levels. That is the way this is designed to work. So if we want to integrate with this, we need to make sure our radio works the same way. Now, these outputs right here are your preamp low-level outputs. These are going to be from 0 volts up to 5 volts on some radios. On this Pioneer, I think it's 4 volts. But it is from 0 to 5 volts, usually from 0 to 2 volts on most radios. And to get to 5 volts on most radios, you do need to turn on all the boosts available in the settings. If you just turn the volume to 50, it might go to like 2.5 instead of 5 or 2.3. I think from 0 to 2 volts, you're good to use this on your factory amplifier. So if your radio only puts out 2 volts, don't even worry, you can push both to max. But for the average use case, you're gonna set this to half volume, or you're gonna meter this. So you're gonna turn the volume up, you're gonna take a multimeter, and you're gonna figure out what the voltage is here at whatever level. So at volume 30, that's when the voltage is 1.1, and that's good enough to use with our interface and the factory amplifier, and you know you're good. If you choose to use it in a different manner, something that can happen to you is, I've seen people do this now, they turn this max, they leave this in the glove box, they hide it, whatever. Then they use this to control the volume. At volume 0, they get a little bit of a hiss, and when they turn the car off, they get a pop because the amplifier is maxed out. So the amplifier volume is maxed out, and any little noise that this radio can make, you're going to hear it through these speakers. So that's not a recommended use case. You use both volumes. Or if you only want to use one volume control, then you leave this at 25 and you only use this. You never touch this. Now, the other part of the equation that's going to come up is, what about my steering wheel controls? My steering wheel controls control which one of these do they control? How do they factor? Do I have 3 volume controls? No. In our situation, your steering wheel controls with your aftermarket radio control only the volume for the aftermarket radio. So your steering wheel controls should be used to lower the volume or raise the volume from 0 to 25 on this while you leave this stagnant. So if you want to play music at full volume, the full volume you can get, you set this to 25, 30, and you max this out. If you're driving, that's too loud, you want to lower it, you use your steering wheel controls to lower it, you use your steering wheel controls to raise it up. You do not bring this radio past 30, 25, whatever the half is when you're using the steering wheel controls, and you'll be safe. If you use it in another different case than what we described, half volume, and use this to use the other thing, you might run into issues. You might damage your factory amplifier. you might do some damage to your radio. Who knows? So just be careful. Use it the way it's meant to be used, and you'll get, trust me, it'll be louder than what the factory was. It'll sound better. You don't need to damage your amplifier or go crazy. Also, remember, you have to use RCAs. So make sure you're using RCAs and not the high-level output of the speakers. When you buy this, it comes with a plug-and-play harness, so you'll never have the wrong thing. But if for whatever reason you somehow get one of these secondhand, or you mess up our harness or doing some custom thing, you want to use low level from the aftermarket radio to your factory amplifier. Now, I know I talked a lot. I know that was a hard explanation, might be a hard concept to grasp. We're going to do a demonstration video when we do the upgrade video on the MDX for the radio. That's coming out next, so stay tuned for that, and it'll be a very detailed explanation of how this gets installed and how exactly it works. But I just want to let you know it exists. I want to let you know the engineering behind it, and I explained to you how it works. So if you can grasp the concept once you see it in action, it might be a little bit easier to understand, or this might have been enough to explain it to you. But ultimately, this is ready to go. It's been shipping. People have it. If you want to replace the radio in your ELS system, that's going to cover 2009 to 13 TL, 09 to 13 TSX, 7 to 13 MDX, and the RDX as well uses the same amplifier. Your RL for those year series 9 to 13, still using the Bose system, still using that Bose amp with its proprietary. Also, it has its own CAN bus messages for that system, so beware of that. That's on the RL. Or your other Acuras, if they have the Panasonic amp and have the ELS system, I'm pretty sure we have it cracked. It's just a matter of actually testing in that vehicle. But all the vehicles I mentioned have been tested in, except for the RDX, but it's the exact same amplifier, so I think we're good. Guys, something I forgot to mention is if you plan on replacing your radio and then you're going to run aftermarket amps, then you don't need any of the stuff we have. So Metro has a power harness for most of these cars. They have the plug here, and they have the other plug. So if you have 09 to 13, the plugs are the same in the back for power. Only the 7 to 09 MDX has this plug, but Metro has both of them. So if you just need power behind the radio, you can get it from Metro, because ultimately you're just going to power this radio and then run entire new wiring, etc. If you are looking for like a custom solution, we can make you a custom bundled package where it might have like some DIY components and some plug and play components, so you can make like a complete system. But if you are thinking of going aftermarket radio and brand new amplifier, then I'm sure we have products that can help you, but there's a lot of stuff that you could just pretty much do on your own. That wraps up the video, so thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe for those other videos that are coming soon. And if you know anyone with an Acura within the ELS system, feel free to show them the video if you think they'll get some value from it. Thanks for watching.